Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome on this very sunny, warm afternoon to your shared ownership webinar, the second in a series of our buyer webinars. My name is Stuart. I'm from Radian Group and I'll be your host today, so welcome. This is a fantastic opportunity for you to learn more about this very popular scheme and understand how it can help you get your foot onto the home ownership ladder. Firstly, let me tell you a little bit more about who we are. So Radian Group, we are a leading provider of affordable housing across southern England. Last year, we actually completed an exciting new partnership between Radian and Yarlington, another housing provider. We creating a new organisation, and we look after over 38,000 homes across the south and assets, and we have over 79,000 customers. Our customers are at the heart of our business, and we are dedicated to creating high quality homes that enable and enhance communities that are well managed and maintained. So the webinar today will run for about 45 minutes. During our time together, you will have the opportunity to ask our expert panelists questions about the shared ownership scheme. So please do fire in your questions into the chat bar. We're here today to help you. So the more questions you send in, the more answers we can give you. So we are here for you, dedicated for this time. It's a challenging time at the moment for everyone. I think we've all taken time to reflect on our plans for the future, and hopefully after today we can help you with your plans and take the next steps to make those a reality for you. Shared ownership is a very popular scheme. It offers you the opportunity to purchase a new or second-hand home with a smaller mortgage and pay a low amount of affordable rent on the remaining portion. Now, over time, you have the option to buy more shares and you have the opportunity to eventually own your home outright. So please do fire in your questions. I can see a couple coming in already. So we're going to introduce our panelists, but at the same time, the chat's there and we're here for you. So please pop in anything you want to know. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our four panelists, specialists in their fields, all here to help you today. We have Gemma from Radian Group. So Gemma, hello, thank you for joining us today. We also have Elliott, who has joined from the Mortgage Hut, which is a leading mortgage brokerage in the south of England. So Elliott, thank you for coming here today. Keith has joined us from Stephens Scown Solicitors to help us out on the legal side of things. So welcome, Keith. Thank you for joining us. And we also have, last but not least, we have Nicola from Radian Group as well, who is also here to help answer your questions. So what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to go to each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll dive straight into the question and answer session. Gemma, I'm going to start with your good self. Thank you for joining the panel today. Would you like to just say hello and a little bit about your role in the buying journey?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm in the sales team, and I would be with you on your first step of your journey to finding your home, hopefully reserving that property, and then going through the buying process with you and viewing the property all the way through to exchange of contracts and then completion, where you would get your keys to your new home.
Thank you, Gemma, that's great, and thank you so much for joining us today. Elliott, I'm going to come over to you next. If you just want to say hello to everyone and just a bit about who you are and the role that you play in the buying journey.
Thanks for having me today. So my name's Elliott and I work for the Mortgage Hut. I've got two roles in the process in your client journey. So basically the first step is that I do the assessment. So I basically try and establish the share you can afford of the property, and then I'll put that forward over to Radian. And if you do decide to proceed, then my job changes and I'll help arrange the finance for you and take you through all the way through until you get the keys to your new property.
Lovely. Thank you, Elliott. That's great. And thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It's so important to understand the mortgage process when it comes to buying a new home. So I can see there's questions coming in, so please do keep those coming in. That's great, and we'll cover all of those. I'm going to come to Keith. Keith, thank you for joining us today. Just from the legal side of things, you want to say hello to our audience and just a bit about your side of the buying journey?
Yes, hello there. I'm Keith Wright from Stephens Scown Solicitors in the West Country, and I act for many of the social landlords down here, and I specialise in drafting the shared ownership leases. So I'd be happy to talk to you all about the nuances of those leases, how they work, and why I think they're a good, flexible product.
That's great. Thank you, Keith, and really appreciate you taking time out to join us today and help our buyer audience with any questions they've got. So that's brilliant. And last but absolutely not least, going to come over to you, Nikki from Radian Group, if you'd like to say hello to our audience and just a bit about how what you do in the buying journey.
Yes, thank you. Hello, so my name's Nikki and I am within the post sales team. So we deal with your resale. So at the end of your journey, you're in your property and then you wish to proceed onto something maybe bigger or change what product you're in, then you come back through to us and we will act as an agent and sell the property for you to find a new shared owner for that home. We also deal with staircasing. So if you wish to buy further shares in the property, you'd come back through to our team. We also do other elements such as remortgaging, lease extensions, that sort of thing. So anything sort of post-sale is through to us.
That is brilliant, Nikki. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see lots of questions coming in. So again, panelists, thank you. We've got our experts in the room. So let's move over to the question and answer session now. So I can see the questions coming in and we'll dive into those. I will try and pick out any common themes that are coming through to make sure that we can give a nice broad picture of the buying journey to our audience. So I can see, so first question that we had come in, I've been looking online and seen some places I like. What is the first step I should take in the buying journey? So Gemma, I'm going to come over to you for this one. What's the first step?
Okay, so exciting. The first step would be, if you found some properties that you like the look of, would be to contact us to arrange a viewing. Now that can be in a couple of different formats. So if the property isn't currently in stock, then we would be able to offer you a potential virtual tour where we can take you through the property virtually so you can have a good look around and see if it's something that you would be interested in. We can also talk through the floor plans with you and just discuss if it meets your requirements. If the property is a stock plot, we would be able to go and have a viewing of the property. So we'd meet you there. Obviously, in today's current climate, we would have to think about our precautions that we take in terms of COVID. So we all have protective equipment and we would have some for you there as well to make sure everyone is safe and secure when viewing the property.
Thanks, Gemma. That's great. So we're getting lots of questions coming in. That's really good, nice summary of what happens right at the beginning of the journey. I can see another question that's come in. Very common question. You know, financing your purchase, the mortgage side of things, which can be a bit of a minefield. I'm going to come over to you, Elliott, if that's okay. In terms of how do I get a mortgage to buy somewhere? How does that even work, that process?
Right, okay, so to get a mortgage to buy somewhere, so we're talking about shared ownership, it's fairly similar. So basically, what the lender's looking for is your evidence of earnings, any debts you've got, looking at your ID, those sort of documentation, which are fairly standard, which you'll have. And basically, someone like myself would look at the marketplace for you, would discuss what you're looking for, your preferences, and then we'd look to recommend the deal which suits your needs. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you, Elliott. That's really, really useful. So let's flow with that journey. Let's go over to the legal side of things. I see a question that's come in around the legal process. How do I instruct a solicitor? When do I start paying my fees for the legal process? Keith, if I can come to you on that, that'd be great.
Yes, of course. Legal fees, most solicitors will agree a fixed fee with you, and they'll start off talking to you about shared ownership and the conveyancing process without a fee. Finding a solicitor, most people take recommendations from people who have used solicitors before. It may be that Radian or Yarlington can recommend people because you want to try and find somebody who's used to the shared ownership product. Not that that means that any conveyancer can't do it, but it does mean that they might be able to find the communication with you a little bit easier to explain how the product works and what it means to you in terms of your ownership of the property and your responsibilities for looking after it and your rights to staircase up to own more and more of the property over time. Thank you, Keith. That's really useful, Keith. Thank you very much. On the topic of staircasing, there's another question that's come in here. So if you buy resale property, do you need to buy the percentage that the selling party own as a minimum? So Nikki, I'm going to come over to you on this one, if that's okay. If you could help us out with that one, thank you.
Yes, so if you're buying a current sort of resale or current shared ownership property, it will be a minimum of the share that current person owns, because what we're doing is we're selling that share, so it will be a minimum. However, you can buy a higher share if you are able to. So you're not limited on just that share, but you can't go lower. It has to be that share or higher.
Thank you, Nikki. That's brilliant. Just seen something else come in here as well around obviously COVID has made everyone's lives very challenging at the moment. Obviously, from a financial perspective and lending perspective, there's been various changes around that as well. Elliott, obviously this is quite a hot topic, so I'm going to come to you, Elliott, on this. I'm struggling to get a shared ownership mortgage due to COVID. What are the lenders doing? How, are they treating things the same? And I guess I'm going to add a question to that as well. If I'm furloughed, how does that affect me at the moment?
Two very good questions with quite long answers, so I'm going to try and be as general as possible with this. So the lenders have reacted to the impact of COVID in a number of ways. Some of them have withdrawn from the market, some are asking for more deposit, and some are asking for more documentation, particularly if you're self-employed. So and also the process is a little bit slower now because of COVID. Obviously, the lenders have to follow the safe distancing rules. Obviously, they're working remotely, so the whole process has slowed down a little bit. But there are still plenty of lenders out there lending. So as long as, and this is true, as long as you fit their criteria, there will be a lender out there for you. Regard to being furloughed, this is constantly changing, and if you asked me this question 2 weeks ago, it'd be a slightly different answer, and next week again it'd be a slightly different answer as well. The lenders are constantly changing their attitudes, people being on furlough, because obviously once they start getting cases in, they can actually sort of see the effects on their business. But I'd say the general answer is that if you're being furloughed, some lenders will use your 80% furlough. Some lenders will only allow you to go to offer once you've got your return to work letter. And there are a few who will actually allow you to work just on your 80% furlough mark. Okay, hope that helps.
That is great, Elliott. Thank you so much, because I know that is such a hot topic and on a lot of people's minds at the moment, and that affects, people's ability to be able to buy. We are in more challenging times, but, equally, there are a lot of people that have had that time to reflect and hopefully want to make that next step. I've got a question which I'm just going to sort of throw in as well, along with the questions that's coming in. So in terms of if I was a buyer, and I've got, some people might have some reservations around the specification that you might get in a shared ownership property in terms of the quality of finish, etc., etc. Gemma, I'm going to come to you on this. If you could just try and sort of alleviate some of those concerns in terms of a shared ownership property, who delivers them and how they're built, and what kind of specification that we offer to our buyers.
Yeah, so with our properties, they all have to go through quite a rigorous process, and they are checked at every element of the build process to make sure they're built to a certain standard. And when they're finalised, they are signed off to say they are a habitable home. The actual specification we put in our properties is a really good specification for people to start their home journey in, I suppose. Most of them come with flooring, they have integrated ovens and hobs and hoods, spaces for your appliances. They are a good specification to the point where on the day you get your keys, you could quite happily move into that home, put your furniture in there and start living and not have to worry about any issues or problems that you're going to find, and be quite comfortable in that property.
Thank you, Gemma. And I'm actually going to come back to you with sort of a piggyback question. In terms of how long it takes to actually move into your property, how does that work? Are the properties already now? Are they in the future? How long could it take for me to move into my new home?
It is all quite property specific. So it depends if the property is what we call a stock plot, which is a plot that we already have the keys for, or if it's currently being built. So if the property is being built, then we will be in touch with you regularly to let you know how things are going with the build programme and give you estimated move-in dates. If the property is in stock, then it is something that can be done relatively quickly. Obviously, you have to go through the process of getting your mortgage, and the solicitors and legals have to be done correctly. And we're looking at about four to 6 weeks on those. So if the property is in stock, then you could easily be looking to exchange contracts between 4 to 6 weeks and then getting the keys very shortly afterwards. If it is being built, then obviously that will change, but we will be in touch with you constantly, giving you updates on when you would be looking to get the keys.
Thank you, Gemma. So that's brilliant. You know, we've got that full end-to-end picture, how long that can take in terms of the programme. Keith, I'm just going to sort of ride on that question as well in terms of the legal process. Any stumbling blocks that could come up around the legal process that might delay matters? Can you give us sort of any insight into that, and how we could overcome some of the common obstacles?
The 4 to 6 week period that Gemma mentioned is quite right. The shared ownership product is institutionally recognised, and there shouldn't be any difficulties with the conveyancing process because all the documentation is standard. The mortgage needs to come through, and the mortgage needs to be approved by the housing association. But it's all a relatively streamlined process. So you're looking at if the property is already built and ready to be occupied, then with everybody willing to do so and the mortgage monies being available, you could be looking at a period of 2 to 3 weeks. If you're at the very beginning of the process and you find the house that you want, but you haven't got your mortgage lined up yet, then you're probably going to end up looking at 4 to 6 weeks. But most of the properties that we sell, they're properties that are in the process of being built, and we'll exchange contracts before the properties have actually been finished. So then you'll be going back to the likes of Gemma to get your regular updates as to when the build process is likely to be finished.
Thank you, Keith. And I'm going to stay with you, Keith, because I see Emma, you popped a question in the chat. Thank you. Is it important that your solicitor is familiar with shared ownership? Obviously, that there's many legal representatives that you can use to help facilitate your purchase. But how important is it that you use a solicitor that really understands the bones of the scheme? I'm going to come back to you, Keith, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. It's a very good question. Any conveyancing solicitor can deal with shared ownership and the shared ownership product. It's obviously going to be easier for them to explain it to you if they understand it fully themselves. So it's really a question of communication and how well the solicitor understands the product, because then it will be something that he can explain to you in a way that you're much more likely to understand. I always find that if I ask a question on a subject I know a lot about, I find that the reaction from my client is that one that I can pass on the knowledge that I've got onto them very easily. So from that point of view, it is useful to have somebody who is familiar with it, but it's by no means necessary. I think the key is to make sure that you're happy with the person you're using, because it's you know, the acquisition of this is going to be your home. It's going to be probably the major acquisition that you do in your life. So you really want somebody that you can speak to and can really understand and explain to you what it is that you're buying and how the product works. So there is a considerable benefit if the solicitor is familiar with the product, but it's by no means essential.
Thank you, Keith. That's really, really helpful. So I can see a couple of questions that come in and around, and I know that this is quite a common theme that we get a lot of buyers asking. With shared ownership, obviously you're a shared owner, so there might be some limitations as to what you might be able to do to that property. Can I put a shed in, or can I redecorate, that sort of thing? So I think if I could come to you, Nikki, just to sort of run through some of the common limitations, or if there isn't, and just to share that with our audience, that'd be great.
Yes, that's fine. So with regards to sort of home improvements, you will need permission for certain work. So anything such as an extension or knocking down walls, anything majorly, structural, will need permission for. General redecoration, you won't need permission for those works. We will send out surveyors just to have a look at the work, make sure it's all done to building regulations, just to sort of double check it. But it's also worth sort of noting as well that if you are to do the home improvements and you have our formal consent, then there can be times when you were to staircase, for example, when that you would get the benefit of that if it changed the value or increased the value of your property in any way. So we always say to you, always come through to us in the first instance, because we will double check and confirm with you, one, if permission's needed, and two, we will then process that permission for you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a really useful summary for our buyers, because it is a very common question. So hopefully that will really be quite useful. Elliott, I'm going to come over to you on the mortgage side of things. Something that I know comes up a lot is if I've got bad credit. If I've got a CCJ, or I've missed a couple of payments on some credit cards, can I still get a mortgage or not? Are there any restrictions there? If we could just have some insight on that, that'd be great.
Okay, right. So thank you for that question. It's a very, very good question. Another good one. Anybody who's got a history of adverse credit, you need to let the broker know straight away, and it's best to have an up-to-date credit file like Equifax, so that the broker can actually see what's recorded against your name, because the lender's looking at what's been recorded, when it happened, the amount, and what you did about it, and the reason why it happened, and all those factors will feed into the broker and help them decide if that your circumstances will allow you to be placed with a lender. Now, at the moment, with COVID, lenders are a little bit more nervous. So if you have got adverse, it might be a little bit more difficult to place you. But if it's historic and it's shown as settled on your file, then that might be something which we will be able to place you with. I hope that helps.
It does, Elliott. Thank you so much, because I know that is, that can be a common concern for people looking to make the move, but concerned that if there is a bit of bad credit there, whether they can go along the journey or not. Gemma, I'm going to come over to you just quickly. Obviously with COVID, and I know you alluded to it earlier when you said hello to our buyer audience, around sort of steps that we put in place at the moment to obviously from a health and safety perspective, which is absolutely key, that we protect our customers and our colleagues as well within the organisation. But in terms of how we're doing things a bit differently to engage with our buyers, or virtually launches or viewings, what we're doing around that, and how can our buyers engage with us in a slightly different way as we emerge into our new normal?
Okay, so things have changed obviously, and we've had to change and adapt our processes to go along with that. You're absolutely right in terms of virtually, buyers can contact us and we can offer them virtual tours, like I've said before, and we can do things on a much more virtual basis. So we can, if a buyer wants to speak face to face, then we can do it over this sort of medium. That we have also changed the processes in terms of when we do viewings. If we're carrying out physical viewings, we would meet them at the property, but we would stand, obviously, make sure we're social distancing. We would open the door for them, but we'd let them go in and complete the viewing without us, if that makes sense. They could go and have a look around the property. We wouldn't be inside the property with them, but we would be there when they came out, and then they can ask us any questions that they needed to ask in a socially distanced environment. We'd also provide the correct PPE, so masks, gloves. They wouldn't need to provide their own. We do have our own that we can provide. And we make sure all the surfaces are wiped down before and after the viewing is conducted. So we can still go about our business and they can still view properties, they can still interact with us. It's just in a safe environment, because that is paramount for everyone involved.
Thank you, Gemma. I think that's really, really useful for our buyers to understand, the steps that we've taken and how we were innovating to try and make that buying journey easier and safer for everybody. Gemma, I'm going to fire another question just back, because it's a common thing that comes up with our buyers in terms of, and it is a bit of a minefield with terminology out there. Help to buy is a term that's used a lot in terms of shared ownership, and also for the equity loan scheme, which are two different things. I think it'd be quite useful for our audience if we could just explain a bit about the differences of what those two schemes are and how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be quite confusing for buyers. So to try and keep it quite broad and a way that you'd understand, the Help to Buy scheme is a government-backed scheme which enables purchasers to buy a new build property with help of an equity loan, also known as shared equity. So the government provides a loan of up to 20%. In London it's 40%, I believe, and the purchaser only has to raise a 5% deposit. So they have to get a 75% mortgage to purchase that property. With shared ownership, it is different, because you would usually purchase anywhere between 25% and 75% of the total market value, and it very much depends on what you can afford. You get a mortgage on the share that you're purchasing rather than the whole amount, and you pay a below market rent on the remainder of the property or the unacquired equity. So they are different schemes, and they both fit a purpose, but they work quite differently.
That's brilliant, Gemma. Thank you so much. So we've had a really good range of questions coming in on the live Q&A. So I want to pass my sincere thanks to everybody who's participated and joined us today. I hope you found it really useful. There's been a broad range of topics that we've had. Hopefully from our panel experts, we've managed to cover all the key themes around the steps in the buyer journey for you to go away and digest and have a think about how shared ownership could work for you in your home ownership journey. So thank you everyone for your contribution today. There have been some great questions. I hope the information that we've shared will go a long way in helping you plan for your future. There is further contact information and many useful guides, which I highly recommend. They can be found on our websites. We've got radianhomes.co.uk for the South and South East area, and we've also got our partner organisations website, yarlingtonhomes.co.uk, for homes in the southwest of England. Please follow us on Twitter at Radian Homes and Yarlington at Yarlington Homes for updates. I want to sincerely thank everyone for joining us today, and especially to our panel as well. Thank you so much for taking time out to help us answer those questions for our buyers. I hope you found it informative and useful. It's a very warm afternoon, so have a very pleasant sunny afternoon, everybody, and we hope to speak to you very soon. Thank you again, and take care and stay safe.